Good morning, everybody. I'm really pleased to have the opportunity to share my thoughts with you this morning. It's That has been a very interesting introduction, and the words of Marie have been, I would say, perfect to introduce my reflections this morning, the reflection that I wish to share with you. Because Mary mentioned the periphery and the fact that ideas do come from peripheries, and it is exactly the basic point of my speech. Of course, I am the director of Tiresia. Tiresia is the competence center of the School of Management of Politecnico di Milano, dealing with social innovation and impact finance. And of course, Politecnico di Milano being the largest and most important technical university in Italy and among the first in Europe, you will hear a lot of references on the role of technology and innovation in shaping a new paradigm, more inclusive, and to demonstrate that it is a huge opportunity to stitch up the lacerations that the recent crisis, but also the crisis of the so-called knowledge economy have created. And in fact, my premise would be that a great deal of expectation has been placed on the so-called knowledge economy, the economic paradigm that is characterized by the centrality of intangibles, knowledge, technologies, and which is directly based on the production, distribution, and use of knowledge and information. So we have spent the last maybe 20 years hoping that with the general assumption that the knowledge economy would have been able to spur growth and prosperity, and to do so in an equitable and in an inclusive way, so that this new paradigm would have been very good for the center and for the periphery together. And as a consequence of this assumption, of course, the prevailing innovation policy approach was molded around the myths and legends of the Silicon Valley, with a very limited consideration of the idiosyncratic and specific feature and enabling factors that would have made such an innovation policies successful in Europe, and with a very poor consideration on the geography of Europe. If you want an example of these, one may recall the science parks and incubators hype, the stubborn obsession for venture capital and its supports on the supply side of capital, instead of concentrating on more relevant demand side capacity building issues, the obstinate faith in science push models of innovation, the overestimation of the role of universities in technology transfer, the unreasonable reduction of tech transfer to mere collection of spin-offs and IPRs, and many other different features of the policy approach to innovation and inclusion. But unfortunately, an increasing number of empirical evidences is showing us that the economics of knowledge in Europe has fallen short of expectation. Debatably in terms of absolute growth performance, of course, but certainly in terms of equitable distribution of opportunities. And this has a lot to do with the issue of periphery, center against periphery, rural communities, and the distribution of opportunities in communities. High density of knowledge and wealth have has concentrated in selected areas and segments of society, but the vast majority of geographical areas, communities, and social segments have been left behind or excluded. And unfortunately, this is the heritage of the knowledge economy, of the bad interpretation of the knowledge economy. And of course, this has resulted in a huge amount of discontent that is incidentally one of the sources of wave of populism and anger and anti-politics that we are witnessing today. And this is not merely a crucial equity and social justice issue, but it may as well pose a glass ceiling on the prospects of growth in Europe. A wide stream of economists, a number of economists, underlines that the so-called knowledge economy is leading to a huge series of socio-economic and territorial inequalities, leading to the subsequent creation of so-called, I love the expression of Roberto Unger, the so-called insular vanguards, where the effects of knowledge economy appear to be confined and restricted. And so it's, Marie was right, it's not merely an issue of periphery against center or center against periphery, but it's insular vanguards against the rest of the world. And I think this is very dangerous, and I think that this is an issue that we need to urgently tackle. So we are left with the problem that Rodrigo Pose would call the places that are left behind, and we do need to come up with a brand new approach that will be able to recreate jointly and simultaneously an economic and social infrastructures in community, in the places that are left behind, and all over the place. And you probably have understand so far now that I do believe that the classical narrative on VC-fueled, science-intensive, technology-push model of innovation-driven growth has to be revisited, or at least paralleled with an equally important inclusive innovation agenda, able to jointly pursue growth and contrast inequality and environmental crisis. And we do need a brand new infrastructure for that, and an infrastructure that is distributed in communities, in places, in geography, to cut a long story short. And in order to do so, we need to inaugurate a new generation of place-based, inclusive, innovation-driven development policies that are inspired by a much more inclusive idea of growth. Now, it is important to specify: does it mean a knowledge-free degrowth agenda? No, of course, not quite the opposite. It is rethinking knowledge as a driver of inclusion. Let me try to rephrase that. It means that we need to find a different way to convey the value of knowledge to society in a more pervasive, fairer way. And this, in my opinion, boils down to create a new entrepreneurial infrastructure that is naturally able to create both social and economic value, or, if you want, it is a native hybrid. We know the story about hybridity. We know the story about the fact that social entrepreneurship is changing. The Ashoka community is a leader and has been a path-breaking organization in this. But I think the next step is to reflect very deeply on the connection, on the role, on the intersection between scientific knowledge, technological knowledge, and the social entrepreneurship community. This is really the new frontier that could trigger a new way of conceiving more inclusive growth policies for Europe, at least, or for the rest of the world. Scientific knowledge, exploitation, and technology transfer have been debated, intensively debated by the economic community in the last maybe 50 years. And the idea is that the value of research is traditionally conveyed to society through the intermediation of the industrial system, basically, which has historically taken care of exploiting knowledge, translating it into economic value, and at least partially giving it back to society. But the question is, what if the industry, or a knowledge-intensive industry, is no longer there in certain areas of Europe? So what happens in the very many places that after this first generation of knowledge economy are left without an industrial structure that is able to convey and to give back the huge investment in knowledge and research and development that were usually intermediated by the industry, but the industry is no longer there? What about the communities that are left without an industrial structure? Who is taking care of giving them the right portion of the value of knowledge that they have contributed to as taxpayers, as innovators, as a part of the society? And this is the crucial question. And so that Europe should face. And I think that the real alternative to give an answer to the community that are left without an industrial structure, which are left without a traditional innovation infrastructure, is to think of social tech innovation. Social tech innovation is innovation that is at the intersection between the opportunities of technological innovation and traditional social innovation and social entrepreneurship. So we need to think social tech as a way to convey the value of knowledge directly to society in the absence of a consistent industrial option, or at least in the absence of a traditional industrial option. And my thesis is that this new form of social tech entrepreneurship is the infrastructure that we need to inaugurate a new inclusive growth generation of growth policies powered by a generation of technology transfer and knowledge exploitation models that are more accountable to society. And I will mention in my conclusion that the university is now not actually playing the role that it should, and it is it's a matter of great concern to me that university has not, in general, the academic and university system has not yet even thought of a new form of third mission that is more friendly to social innovation and to social entrepreneurs, because this, of course, would greatly contribute to this new generation of inclusive innovation policy. So, as you understand, I think that at the very center of such inclusive innovation agenda, there is a new entrepreneurial genre that I believe that should be included within the perimeter of policies for growth. And I'm referring to such entrepreneurial genre as social tech venture, a model of entrepreneurship that is neither belonging to the third sector, strictly speaking, nor it can be described by means of mainstream for-profit corporate models that are rebranding themselves as fourth sector or benefit corporation or profit for purpose or whatever you call it. This is, I think, a very important part of the transformation, of course, the part that is coming from mainstream business, but of course that we need to make sure that the important part of the genetic code of social entrepreneurship is part of this hybridization process, of this transformation process. So my argument is, of course, that such a new entrepreneurial genre, the social tech venture, coupled with appropriate financial tools, of course, and leveraging opportunities lying in the so-called markets for social needs, may offer Europe a huge opportunity that stands at the crossroads between research and innovation policies, social policies, and financial policies. And I think that very good news will come from Europe if we will, in the next future, in the next few years, we will be unable to tell apart social policies and research and innovation policies. So such policy dimension, of course, cannot any longer be kept separate, but should form a unique political agenda. And it is a very attractive dual policy agenda that might allow Europe to inaugurate this new policy portfolio. One more specific word on social tech and tech-intensive social innovation before drawing my policy implications and conclusions. So social innovation, in turn, increasingly leverages on technological innovation. We all know that, exploiting technical and technological advancement to create products, artifacts, services, or processes that do contribute to address a social problem. And from this perspective, social innovation is not only complementary to technological innovation, as it was initially conceived, but it brings technological innovation at the very heart of the process. It brings it further by fostering the establishment of a very virtuous cycle whereby technological innovation becomes a relevant ingredient for enacting social innovation. And there are at least 4 or even 5 reasons why technology is bound to play a crucial role in creating this new entrepreneurial genre that starts from social entrepreneurship and boost the potential of social entrepreneurship by means of technological opportunities, along with, of course, market opportunities. The crucial, I think, so-called commoditization of technology. Technologies are becoming, in general, technologies becoming cheap and easy to use and easy to adopt, and it makes the difference because it makes it available to social entrepreneurship. Also, weak social entrepreneurship, small scale social entrepreneurship, and of course this gives this marginal forms of social entrepreneurship huge opportunities to scale up and to be no longer marginal but central in development processes. So I think the availability of so-called commoditized technology is very important because it enables new models of social intervention. It enables scaling up. It enables the identification of new emerging social needs, and so new opportunities for social entrepreneurship to scale up and also to contribute to the improvement of society. Of course, we all know that the other relevant phenomenon is the decreasing transaction cost through IT platforms, technology platforms that are opening up opportunities for new markets, new hybrid markets like the circular economy, the inclusive economy, the sharing economy, and so on and so forth. Of course, the interaction between social entrepreneurship and innovation and technology is not a trivial phenomenon, is not just a wonderful encounter of two opportunities or of two potentials, but the matching between social entrepreneurship and technology is triggering a very deep transformation in social entrepreneurship, and I think we need to come to terms with that in order to understand it deeply and to exploit it in the best possible way. So, what are I think I will mention in this occasion two fundamental processes of transformation that I think will play a huge role in making social tech or social entrepreneurship crucial in order to give new opportunities and new chances and a new future to communities or to the places that I call left behind places. Well, the first thing is that the inherent characteristic of social tech venture and the centrality of technology entails a fundamental transformation in social entrepreneurship. That is, from labor intensive to capital intensive. The drift towards technology or capital intensive models motivates an emergent appetite for capital and financial resources and open up to relevant policy issues, especially when coupled with a second element that I would describe in a minute. So I think that the appetite for capital and the new capital intensive is a crucial policy issue, because we need to bring capital in the right way, in the right fashion, to the right actors, to social tech enterprises, and to communities that are now left behind and that are not certainly, that are excluded by the huge density of capital that is attracted in very few poles that have been created by the knowledge economy. So social entrepreneurship or social tech is becoming tech intensive, capital intensive. It is developing an appetite for capital, and we need to make sure that we bring capital in the right way and in the right places. The second crucial transformation is, of course, is related to the technological contamination of social enterprises, and it's linked to the scaling up potential of technology and its relationship with business model sustainability. We all know that social enterprises, especially in decentralized place, in the so-called periphery, are characterized, and especially when they try to tackle complex social problems, are typically characterized by very thin economic sustainability margins when existing. Well, technology typically enables scaling up, and therefore it allows social business models to be applied to larger volumes of intervention and larger market size and larger geographical areas. When thin sustainability margins are multiplied by larger volumes, this often makes the case for a more robust and sound business model, a crucial component of hybrid and blended value models. And of course, this is an answer to the appetite for capital that I was mentioning a minute ago. Because on the one side, we have the appetite of capital that is coming from the new capital intensity of social entrepreneurship. On the other side, technology is making social business and social tech entrepreneurship attractive for capital. And this is, of course, the crucial link through scaling up, of course. So when we put together new capital intensive and tech-enabled economic sustainability, an appetite and an appeal for financial capital is simultaneously created, as witnessed by the exponential growth of specialized investors operating in so-called impact investing segments. And, well, I strongly believe that this latter consideration candidates new social tech entrepreneurship to play a crucial role in hybrid impact-oriented value chain, standing in the very middle between the demand for innovative solutions to social problems and impact investors willing to provide specialized finance resources to social entrepreneurs that are able to deliver innovative solutions to such problems. And you, I think, easily understand how crucial this is, not for Milano or for Paris or for London or for the places that are being gifted by an immense fortune by the so-called knowledge economy generation. But it's crucially important for the so-called left behind future. And social tech Ventures are actually the missing link between societal challenges and the growth imperative, I would believe. And this last consideration motivates the idea that social entrepreneurship should be recruited in the perimeter of place-based innovation policies, which has not been done in the last 30 years. And it represents a very crucial option for inaugurating this new generation of knowledge transfer and exploitation channels that are able to convey more value to society in a more equitable and inclusive way in the places where industry is no longer able to play this role. So what? The value of research and of innovation, as I said too many times, has been traditionally conveyed to society through the intermediation of the industrial system or the traditional technology transfer channels, which has taken care of exploiting knowledge, translating it into economic value and growth, and eventually giving it back to society in a way that was fairly geographically distributed. But now the distribution of industry and traditional industrial-related opportunity is no longer the same, and it is no longer there in certain areas of Europe. And so here comes my alternative. The alternative is to think of social tech entrepreneurship as a way to convey the value of knowledge directly to society in the absence of a consistent traditional industrial option. This would imply social tech venture to be brought into the traditional perimeter of industrial policy. And before mentioning in my conclusion what has to be done and what is the practical option that we have, let me just mention a few reasons why we should believe that it is a good option. First, there is emerging market for social needs. The withdrawal of traditional public welfare policies creating the so-called market-based social economy. There is a market for social needs. Estimated that, for example, in Italy, in 60 to 90 billion a year of private family expenditure for social needs. There is an increasing financial supply. There is a new generation of social entrepreneurs that are able to, through technology, to interpret this and to give an answer to these new social needs. Social entrepreneurship is bringing in a brand new entrepreneurial spirit. And most important, there is a diffused installed base. Let me give you a very short example and a few numbers why I believe that the installed base of social entrepreneurship is actually making it an infrastructure for a new, more equitable and fairer development model. Social entrepreneurship and social enterprises are very difficult to define. Numbers vary a lot, but let's take the last statistical report and let's say that there are more or less 2 million social enterprises active in the social economy in Europe, about 10% of the European enterprises. Some of them are managerially structured, have in-depth knowledge of their reference markets. They're typically served markets that are enjoying encouraging prospects of growth and are able to respond to people's needs so they can contribute to a genuinely inclusive model of growth. On top of that, these 2 million enterprises are more equally distributed in geographical terms than traditional enterprises, right? There is an evidence. We have a paper that is available and that will tell you that the geographical distribution of social enterprises is more homogeneous. right, is less concentrated. And it is, of course, a crucial feature and a crucial element of my argument. So my point is, let's take the 2 million social enterprises in Europe. Some of them with a huge potential, some of them still very active in places where there is no longer a trace of traditional industry or entrepreneurship. So let's bet together. And let's bet that we are able every year to turn 1%, I say 1% of the 2 million social enterprises into social tech enterprises. 1% is not a terribly ambitious task. It means think of new capacity building, tech transfer policies, being able to take these social enterprises that, as we said, are structured, are managerial, have a genuine entrepreneurial spirit, help them with technology, with innovation, exploit these opportunities. And let's take that we take 1% of the 2 million organizations. This will result in 20,000 per year new organization that would not be, technically speaking, brand new, but that can be easily considered new high-tech startups. Now, all the traditional science and tech incubators that, in one word, use science as the only source of innovation and entrepreneurship would very hardly be able to create 20,000 new organizations in Europe in 1 year. And it's an easy bet. 1%, 1 out of 100 social enterprises that are diffused in communities and in places. Not only a very interesting number, but a very interesting option in terms of inclusive growth for at least 2 reasons. First, because these enterprises are native social, and therefore, by definition, they are able to deal with specific societal challenges. Second, because these enterprises are rather homogeneously dispersed in geographical terms and well rooted in the so-called left behind places, and therefore suitable to reduce the territorial laceration that has been one of the unintended consequences of the economics of knowledge. So what is my point? The idea is that we can imagine the network of social enterprises in Europe as a diffused and distributed incubator and accelerator. It is an infrastructure. So no longer unlikely incubator and accelerator mimicking the Silicon Valley metaphor in places that are unable to exploit this potential, but social entrepreneurship as a distributed and diffused infrastructure, a distributed and diffused incubator and accelerator that is powerful for 2 reasons. First, because it can generate huge numbers. Second, because it gives birth to a generation of enterprises that are native social. And of course, I have not mentioned the COVID crisis, but of course, this is even more important for at least 2 reasons after the COVID crisis. The first reason is that because we are in the very middle of a terrible crisis that in the next few months will manifest its effects in economic terms, leaving behind a huge and terrible amount of social problems. The second is that business is changing. There is a break of paradigm in crucial sector. Let me mention health and care. Let me mention the production or distribution of last mile food. Let me mention proximity tourism, new ways of living. These are new business and business opportunities where there is no business opportunity without roots in the community, without purpose, without the social intention. And so there are business segments and business sectors that in the next future will represent opportunities of economic growth only if they are interpreted by a new generation of enterprises. A new generation of enterprises that, in my opinion, should come from this new diffused and distributed incubator, this new infrastructure that you need to create in behind places. So the idea is to imagine the network of social enterprises in Europe as a diffused and distributed incubator and accelerator, shifting from a model that uses incubator and science parks as physical places and sources of innovative entrepreneurship to a model that leverages on social innovation and social entrepreneurship networks as a means of shifting from a polarized model to a distributed and inclusive model of innovation and growth. Of course, in order to do so, the new innovation policy, the new place-based innovation policy in Europe has to be centered on a new notion of technology transfer policies that cannot any longer be the Silicon Valley replicated in every place in Europe, but has to be a brand new idea that need to involve the research system, the research ecosystem, the university ecosystem that should not just target brilliant researchers or brilliant students, but has to target social entrepreneurs and to involve them in a new generation of technology transfer. Why do I believe that this is the new model for the future of Europe? Simply because it's a model that is able to seize the COVID-related opportunities and to heal the wounds of the knowledge economy. And this is going to be my final remark. Thank you very much.